Okay, who did not get a Hebrew chart sheet right here? Okay.
Yeah, so he's got an e-bag. He turns out to be 800 years old. Yeah, like in the old like Babylon.
Okay.
It was like 1970. No, even what Baby Yoda. Yeah. Baby Yoda.
All right, that's going around.
What Yoda looks like you. Yeah, he does not look like me. I would have to have him.
All right, we're going to get started. Welcome, this is Hebrew, beginner's Hebrew, but what I'm going to do, hopefully by next week, some of you have been through this multiple times. What I'm going to try to do next week is break you into two different groups and have like more of an intermediary group, and then a more beginner's group as well. And then kind of give the intermediary group some work, some translation stuff to do, and then check them as a group, and then with beginners, keep going through learning the alphabet, the different sounds that alphabet produces. But we have a lot of new faces. We have the Hams back there, and then we have John Paul and his family from First Assembly here in Cottonwood, and Brandon, who is one of my students from Northside, 11th grade from Northside. So I want to say welcome to you all. I'm glad you guys are here. It's exciting that you're wanting to dig deeper into the Hebrew language so that you can study Scripture. I want to first ask a question. I always ask when I teach. This is my fourth time teaching it here at DMF. And then I've taught an intensive Hebrew class in Uganda in East Africa for a week. And usually by about 8 weeks, I can get a person to read biblical Hebrew if they come and they do the work throughout the week as well, memorizing the alphabet and just spending time studying and preparing for the lessons and stuff. Usually it takes about 8 weeks where I can get you to read biblical Hebrew. So it's a lot easier. The language that you're hearing me speak right now is the third hardest language to learn in the entire world. So if you can learn English, then you can learn biblical Hebrew. It's actually one of the simpler and more primitive languages that are out there on the... Hey guys, welcome. This is our second Sophia here. Second Sophie. We have another Sophie too. So, let me ask you all a question. I'm going to kind of get some crowd participation here. Why are you here, and what's motivating you to want to learn Hebrew this morning? Anything? Do I need to call names? Jonathan, why are you here this morning? And then we'll go to Adrian. So you can eventually teach it. All right, good deal, good deal. Adrian?
I will eventually have to know it. As God said that He will restore us to a pure tongue one day. So I'm here willingly learning it so that I can get a little bit.
Yeah, so perhaps it's the language of the kingdom. Where do you get that from? I'm quizzing your...
That is in...
If you're taking notes, write down Zephaniah 3:9. Zephaniah 3:9, yeah. Zephaniah 3:9 is a prophetic passage that says that God will restore His people to a pure speech. What is a pure speech? It's actually a Lashon Chodesh. Lashon Chodesh. Or Lashon... Lashon Chodesh, a holy tongue. Holy tongue. And what is that holy tongue? Well, some would speculate that that's the Hebrew language. That the Hebrew language is the language of the kingdom. But why else? Why are you here wanting to learn a 3,000, some think maybe 4,000-year-old language?
I want to get closer to God in understanding what He said in the original language.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to be able to read Scripture in its original language,
Yes.
which is really important as a student of the Bible. The biblical scholars say that reading a biblical translation is like a translation of the Bible. Like if I were to pick up an English Bible, like NIV, King James Version, ESV, it's like kissing your bride through her veil. So how many of you've been married and what did you do before you kissed your bride? You lifted the veil, right? People would think you're crazy if you kissed your bride through the veil. That's kind of the Jewish understanding of getting into the text, getting into the original language, is lifting the veil of the bride. And that reading a translation is kind of like riding around with training wheels on, is the kind of thought process. That really you should be digging into the original language and understanding the original language free of the bias of a translator, because every translator has bias. And the Bible, we can all agree, was not originally written in English. The English language is only about, 400 to maybe 600 years old in its more primitive stages. we all agree that the Bible is not written in English. So it kind of breaks down this argument of like which translation is the best. Is it King James? Is it NIV? Is it ESV? Really, let's just transcend that whole argument and just dig into the original language, right? And that's even better. What else? Why else would you want to, let me take one more person. Why else would you want to learn Hebrew Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning with tornadoes coming? Anything else?
Why not?
Why not? Okay. All right.
It was already said, you know, if we are disciples of that great, great master, I want to hear what he said. And just the thought of just listening to a Hebrew translation of the disciples' prayer, it just makes my heart revive with,
yeah.
That's those are the words.
You're hitting on the theme that's going to be kind of our theme today, which is the concept of being a Talmid. Does anyone know what a Talmid is? If you're a follower of Yeshua, a follower of Jesus of Nazareth in this room, you are a Talmid. What is that, Joshua?
A disciple?
A disciple. A disciple. Yeah, and we're going to talk about this word today, and towards the end of our class today. We're going to wrap up here in about approximately 1 hour from now. But a Talmid, we're going to talk about that. We're going to delve into that term today, and what does it mean to be a Talmid. Before I do, so thank you, Jose. You're wanting to learn the Hebrew language to be a better Talmid. And we'll talk about why that makes you a better Talmid, a better disciple. So let me give you some Hebrew words that you already know. This is kind of to break down some of the fear that you might have about learning Hebrew. You already know, I could probably name off about 20 Hebrew words that you already are well familiar with. Probably even more than that, probably upwards of 50 if you grew up in a biblical home, a Christian home. The first one, what do we say at the end of every prayer? Amen. That's a Hebrew word. It's a Hebrew word. I can actually write it out here. It's Aleph. And you don't know what these letters mean, but Amen. Is that, read it right to left. Amen. It shares the same phonetic root, the same linguistic root as the word omen. You know, like a sign that's to come to pass. It's a bad omen or a good omen. Amen means may it come to pass. What about this? Bath. What you lay in and you get clean in. Bath. That's a unit, it's a Hebrew unit of measurement. It's a liquid volume measurement. Behemoth. Behemoth. Anybody know what that means? What's a behemoth?
I always thought it was some kind of giant dinosaur.
It's like a giant creature, right? It comes from the Hebrew behemot. Behemot, which means a large creature, a large animal. But behemot. What about this? That's copacetic. Copacetic. You ever heard that? It's kind of big in like the 60s and 70s, right? Oh man, that's copacetic. What does that mean? Anybody, what does that mean?
It sounds like wondrous.
Wondrous. Yeah, sort of. What else? Dude, that's copacetic, man.
Awesome.
Heard that? It's awesome. What about like it's all good? It's all good, right? That comes from the Hebrew. It comes from the Hebrew kol besedek, which means all righteous or all good. Copacetic. All right. What about this? Jubilee. Jubilee. You ever heard that? There's the year of Jubilee, right? It's every 50 years in the biblical calendar. That comes from the Hebrew yuvli, which means a ram's horn. A ram's horn. What about this? Put the kibosh on that. Hey, put the kibosh on that. What does that mean? Huh? Put the lid on it, sort of. To stop it, yeah. That's actually from the Hebrew kibosh, which means to tread down under your feet. To stop it. To squash it. Put the kibosh on it. What about this? The word Messiah. What does that mean?
Savior?
Anointed one, Savior. It comes from the Hebrew word Mashiach, which means literally he or she who has had oil poured over their head. It's someone who's been anointed for a specific reason or purpose. What about this word? Satan. Or in Hebrew we would say Satan. Satan.
Adversary.
It means adversary, but even more, literally, someone who accuses. If you go to a courtroom, there's going to be two lawyers, one who is an accuser and one who is a defender. Satan is actually not his name, it's actually a title for what he does. And he's constantly accusing. And there's a lesson in that, and it says, you know, if you're feeling, if you're hearing words of accusation or shame or guilt or this or that, it might be the voice of the Satan, the accuser. and not the voice of your defender, your redeemer, okay, the one that's on the other side. What about this? Pharaoh. You all know that. That's a Hebrew word. It comes from paro, which means a great house. A great house. What about this one? Rabbi.
Leader.
That's a Hebrew, yeah. That's a Hebrew word. It comes from Ravi or Rav. It means great. Ravi would mean my great one. My great one. So when you call someone a rabbi, you're saying my great one, my teacher. Then there's Selah. Selah is a Hebrew word which means to pause or to reflect. What about shofar? How many of you have heard of shofar? Most of you? Yeah, it's a ram's horn. Yeah. And it just means a ram's horn. Now, you're in good company because there are lots of people in American history especially who had a late in life love affair with the Hebrew language. And one of those would be most notably a man by the name of William Bradford. Have you ever heard of William Bradford? He was obsessed with the Hebrew language late in his life, and he actually sent correspondence back to England to have Hebrew transcripts sent to him in the settlements where he was living so that he could work and translate them. And another one was Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton. We actually have some of his writings to this day where he would write in the Hebrew language. And Sir Isaac Newton actually believed that there was some sort of code in the Hebrew Bible, but we didn't have the computing abilities to actually decipher the code. That was interesting. Then, if you're into football, and especially in the 80s, Reggie White. You ever heard of him? Mm-hmm. Reggie White had a late life obsession with the Hebrew language. He died kind of prematurely. There's many more too, but seems like sometimes people, especially when they grow up in the faith, in the Christian faith or the Jewish faith, or no faith at all, sometimes they have this affinity for the Hebrew language that they have kind of late in their life or in their walk, but it's kind of like you're drawn to it, and you're like, man, I want to learn that language because something, maybe you saw like someone with a Hebrew letter on a necklace, or you saw something, you know, like on a car decal or something. You're like, man, I want to know more about that, or like, you know, what that's all about. But, yeah, it does kind of stir you a little bit. Let's talk about the Hebrew alphabet. Now everyone has a Hebrew chart. And we're going to make some changes to this Hebrew chart, and I'll explain why here in a second. But how many letters are in the Hebrew alphabet? There's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, as opposed to our 26 letters in the English alphabet. There's 22 letters. So there are some letters that are going to make multiple different sounds and syllables. There's 22. There's no numbers in the Hebrew alphabet whatsoever. Like, we have letters, and then we have this different family of characters that we call numbers. They're Arabic numbers. That's not the case in Hebrew. Hebrew, the alphabet, like, this is a number, that's a number, that's a number, that's a number, that's a number. You could add all these other numbers up and get a number, or you could look at each individual number and derive meaning from that as well. So right away, you have this whole other world of like biblical study in terms of like numerology, if you want to study the numbers of things. Because these, a Hebrew speaker would look at these and see numbers as much as they see letters. So it opens like a whole other world of Bible study there for you. There's no punctuation marks in the Hebrew language, in the biblical Hebrew language. No punctuation, no commas. Some of you are like, oh, thank you. No exclamation points, no question marks, none of that. So the reading of a Hebrew text, especially an ancient Hebrew text, you can render it several different ways based on the fact that there's no punctuation, which opens a whole other paradigm of meaning and study. There's no capital letters or lowercase letters, and there's no vowels in the Hebrew alphabet. Like here in our English alphabet, we have A, E, I, O, U, but in Hebrew there isn't any of those sounds. Those sounds are read into it, they're implied into a word, and later on, which we'll talk about eventually, the scribes, about 1,500 years ago, they did devise a system of symbols, which are on your chart at the bottom, of vowels. But those are very, very late additions to the Hebrew alphabet. So some of you are like, wait, how do you read Hebrew if you don't have vowels? Well, oh, and let me mention that Hebrew is actually read from right to left. We read English left to right. Hebrew is going to go this way, which I'm left-handed, and that is wonderful for me because I grew up writing in school with a pencil, and I would write my name, and I would always, at the end of the day, I'd have this on the end of my hand, on the back of my hand, from writing left to right. But in Hebrew, it's right to left, and my hand's always clean when I write. So that's exciting. So you're thinking, how do you read Hebrew right to left with no vowels? Let me show you a little exercise here. In and you guys are going to surprise yourselves. For those who have taken the Hebrew class before here, you know what I'm about to do. We're going to read this right to left, and you tell me, somebody raise your hand and tell me what it says. Yeah, Sophie?
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, but how did you read that? There's no vowels and it's backwards. You want to try another one? This one might be a little bit harder. No vowels, right to left. What does that say? Christmas, yeah, left or right to left, no vowels, but because you're familiar with those words, and because you repeatedly see them throughout the year, throughout your life, you're so familiar with them that it's a sight word. You can just look at it, you can read it backwards without vowels, and you got it. And that's how the Hebrew language works when you're reading a biblical text, is that you're so familiar with these words, they just become almost like sight words to you, and you don't even need the vowels anymore. So, let me erase this with us now. We're going to go through systematically and look at the Hebrew letters in the alphabet. And I'm going to tell you what they sound like if you were to pronounce them, okay? So let me actually steal. Is there any extra charts? I thought I had like 30. Yeah, oh, I'm going to use one here. And then as we go through these letters, I'm going to say them slowly, and I'm going to have you make a couple changes if you have a writing utensil with you. The first letter, the top right-hand corner, it looks like an X. It's the letter Aleph. Now get ready to write. If you have a notebook, great. If you don't, try to bring one next week with you, because a lot of this is writing. I like to have students write stuff, and Brandon will tell you that this is true in my Bible class at least, that I like to have my students write things because it embeds deeper in their memory. And every day when my students come in, I expect them to write a memory verse every day, because it's just, it helps them memorize passages every week. And if you guys do that, it will help you remember the Hebrew alphabet far better. So go ahead in your notebook. I want you to write at the top of your notebook the alphabet, intro to the alphabet or something like that. And then let me show you how to write this letter, Aleph. What I do is I start with a diagonal line like this, go from the left corner to the right corner. So I start like this, go left to right, diagonal. And then I come over here on the right-hand side, like that, almost like a percent sign. And then I come down and I hook it like that, okay? Then I do the same thing. I come right here, and except I hook it the other way, like that. And that's it. So I'll do it again. Left to right diagonally, start top right-hand corner, hook it there, and then hook it back the other way. It kind of looks like an X. All right, go ahead and write the letter Aleph 5 times in your notes, just going straight across. Write it 5 times. Aleph. Aleph. And you get faster and faster the more you practice it. So the letter Aleph, it actually has a numerical value of 1, because it's the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. It makes sense that it's just a 1. Aleph. Let's talk about the sound that Aleph makes. It actually doesn't make a sound. The letter Aleph is a silent letter. So as we go through the Hebrew alphabet, and we're going to get really accustomed, we're going to recite the Hebrew alphabet 5 times per class that we do. When we say the Hebrew alphabet, you're going to go like this with your finger, okay? So let's practice. And we used to go shh like that, but that got confusing because there's another letter that makes that shh sound. So we're just going to go like that, okay? You ready to practice? I'm going to say Aleph, and then you're going to go. All right, ready? Aleph. Perfect. All right, good deal. We'll build upon that. The next letter, as you see, is a bait. Now, look at the English where it says base. You see that base with the S on the end? And then I want you to cross that out and write this instead. With a T at the end, not an S. With a T on the end, not an S. And I'll explain why in a little bit. I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information. But I want you to change that to a T at the end, okay? Bait, bait, like what you fish with, bait, okay? Now, the letter bait, I like to start up here when I'm writing it, and I come down and I make like a hook like that. And then I give it its base. Like that. Okay, I'll do it again. So go ahead and write this in the next line down. Write it 5 times. just like that. Kind of make a backwards R, and then give a little bass under it. Now the bass is important because you see this one's a little bit too long here, but it needs to hang out just a little bit, but not as much as over here. Not as much as over here. So it needs to hang out just a little bit. That's a bait, and that corresponds with the number 2 in the Hebrew counting system. Well, I guess these in our chart have the dot in the middle. We'll put the dot in the middle here. Now, the letter Bates is an interesting letter. It's the first letter that we come across that can make 2 different sounds. The Army, or really the entire military, the U.S. military, has what's called a phonetic alphabet. We say alpha, beta, no, that's Greek. Alpha, Bravo, Delta, Alpha. Man, I'm mixing it all up. But the reason why they do that, I'm like mixing up Hebrew, Army, Greek. The reason why they do that is because if you're talking over a radio and there's a lot of background noise, like warfare going on, your sounds, your phonetic sounds can sound very similar and they can get lost in translation. So for instance, the letter B sounds a lot like the letter V, doesn't it? BV, BV. You hear that? Hebrew is the same way. We have this sound here with a plug in the middle, which corresponds with our letter B. It's a hard B, B. The way I remember this is it has a plug in the bottle here. And you see like on TV when people take a champagne bottle and there's a cork or something like that, they shake it up and they pop the cork off and it's pressurized and all the champagne shoots out, right? That's because there's a cork in there. It's B, B. There's pressure behind it. But if I take the cork out and I make it this right here without the cork, there's no pressure that can build up. And it's a softer V, V, like a V, Victor. Okay? So we have a B and then we have a V. So if you see a bait with a dot, it's a bait. If you see it without one, it's a vait. It's a V. Okay? Softer. So that brings us to our next letter. The letter Gimel. Letter Gimel. And the letter Gimel is pretty straightforward letter. It doesn't make multiple sounds like the letter bait does. But here's how I draw the letter Gimel. Start like that. It's almost like a bait, except you're going to come down further. So go like this. Straight down. It's a little bit longer. And you're going to give it like a little kickstand. Like that. Give it a little kickstand. So come about halfway down, give it a little kickstand. That one's kind of weird looking. See how I did that? Gimel. Gimel corresponds with the number 3 because it's the 3rd letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Okay, it corresponds with the number 3. What sound do you think Gimel makes? A G, like our G, G. Okay, G, as in Gabriel, my name. All right. Okay, it makes the letter G. So you might do it if you write it 5 times. You might write the letter G next to it like that. Gimel. Okay. Not a whole lot of variance with the letter Gimel. I'm just going to make it good. So when I go Aleph, what do you guys do? Okay, let's try. Aleph. Okay, and when I say bait, you go B. Okay, let's try it. Aleph. Bait. Gimel. G. You got it. Okay, let's try it again. Aleph. Bait. Gimel. Good. All right, let's go to the next letter, which is the letter Dalet. Dalet. Okay? And I'm going to draw a horizontal line across the top here. Dalet. And then I'm going to come straight down from that letter, so a little bit over here. So Dalet, it looks like this. And this is a 90-degree angle, like a hard 90-degree angle right there. And Dalet. Dalet. Are we going to do the door thing? You want to point at the door? Tradition. Okay, that's a letter Dalet. It corresponds with the number 4 in the Hebrew alphabet. Dalet. Somebody take a guess, a wild guess. What sound do you think the letter Dalet is going to make? Duh. Duh. Yeah. Now, the word Dalet actually means a door. A door. You see there's a Dalet on the door. You see it actually forms that 90-degree angle and it comes straight down. That's a Dalet. Dalet, okay? So, when I say Dalet, we all point to the door. And we say duh, duh, okay? You ready to practice? Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Duh. Yeah, you have to like kind of multitask on that one. Duh. That's stretching you, right, on a Saturday morning. All right. So we got 4 letters in. We're doing good. The letter Dalet. Dalet. Are there any questions so far? Do we have any questions? Okay, good. Does anybody see the letter Dalet up here? Yeah, at the end. Talmid. Talmid. By the end of today, you'll know how to read this word here, Talmid. I almost need like a full-time eraser up here. I don't know, when I erase, that's when I make my best jokes, though. My best material. All right, let's go on to the next letter. So we're now on the second line. The letter Hey. Hey. It corresponds with the number 5. So it goes like this. You make a hook. See how I'm doing that? So go ahead and write that 5 times in your notes. The letter Hey. Hey. Hey is going to make a sound. What sound do you think hey makes? Yeah, like our letter H. Our letter H. Huh. Okay? It's very important, guys, that you leave this space right here. See that little space that I'm leaving? If you don't have that space, make sure you're leaving that right there. What that allows to happen is your breath can get out a lot easier. Your breath can just go, and it can get right out the door right there. Huh. Okay, because there's another letter, which we're going to talk about shortly, where that is blocked up and the air can't get out. All right? So when I say hey, you're going to go, huh. And hopefully you brushed your teeth this morning. All right? I want you to get up in your neighbor's face and say, huh. All right? So let's go through the whole Hebrew alphabet. All right? Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Good. All right. The next letter is a letter of Vav. Vav. So the way I draw it, I make a little diagonal hook like that, just yay long, and then I make one about 3 times as long going straight down. So I make a short one, and then connect it with one going straight down. Short one, connect it with one going straight down. Write that 5 times. It's really easy, just a little hook. A little hook, a little tent stake. And really in its primitive forms, this would have been like a nail or a tent stake that you drive into the ground. It's a connector piece. It connects something to something else. And that will mean something later, foreshadowing. It connects something to something else. Okay? So number 6. What sound do you think Vav is going to make? Yeah, that's one of the sounds it's going to make. Now, this is going to get overwhelming, so be ready. So Vav is going to make, it has the potential to make 3 different sounds. And there's a little hint. It's really simple. So this is our V sound. So if you have that, write a V. V as in Victor. Okay? V. Vav can make 2 more sounds though. Vav is a tricky letter. Vav can make a sound when if Brandon and I were standing here and I took a basketball and I chucked it in Brandon's stomach as hard as I could, he's going to bend over and he's going to go, ooh, like that really loud. And he's going to get the wind knocked out of him. Ooh, like that, okay? So this Vav that has the ball hitting him in the belly, he's going to make the sound ooh like a double O. Like a double O, okay? Ooh, ooh, okay? Then there's a Vav, so write that down. There's a Vav like this, and if we have the same scenario where Brandon's up here, and I take that same basketball, but instead of hitting him in the stomach as hard as I can, I throw it above his head, and he reaches up and he catches it above his head. He says, oh, I got it. Oh, I got it. Okay? So this one, when Brandon catches it above his head like that, he's going to say, oh. So far, we've got a Vav that makes a V, we've got a Vav that makes a U, and we've got a Vav that makes a O. And the best way I can tell you that is there's no ball anywhere here. It says V. But if Brandon's catching the ball in his belly, he says, ooh. If he's catching it above his head, he says, oh, I got it. And I acted this out in Uganda, and I filmed it. I don't have it hooked up to the projector, but I took a couple kids, and I had one girl from Uganda, and she took a volleyball and chucked it into I didn't think she was going to throw it that hard. She chucked it in his stomach, and he like legitimately goes, he went, oh, like that. And everyone was laughing, you know. And then he did another one where he threw it, and he caught it above his head and said, oh. They thought it was the funnest thing ever. So that'll help you remember. Okay, so let's go through. Now, when we say the Hebrew alphabet, we're not going to go into the U and the O. We're just going to say the Va, okay? So we're going to go Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, okay? But we're not going to concern ourselves with that right now. So let's go through the whole Hebrew alphabet. When I say Vav, you say V, okay? You ready? Here we go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Good, let's do it again. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Good. So you can just listen to me say the letter, and you can almost figure out what sound you need to make, right? Hebrew is very consistent. Unlike English you say G, but you're supposed to pronounce it G. You see, and then you take a P and an H, and you put them together, and it makes a F sound. You know, our language is so crazy. But Hebrew is more consistent. It's going to be more phonetically consistent with itself. The next letter is the letter Zayin. Zayin, if you see there on your chart, corresponds with the number 7. Zayin. Not to be confused with Sion, like Mount Sion, where King David is buried. This is a different word altogether. A Zayin is like a weapon. And here's how I write it. It's a little bit different. It's very similar to a Vav, except there's a little bit of an overhang right here. You see. A little bit of an overhang. See that little roof there? So I make a little squiggly line. This is going to be a tough one to master. Zayin. And it corresponds. So write that 5 times. I'll write it 5 times as well. What sound do you think Zayin makes? Z, as in our Z. Alright? Z. Z. Alright, you got it written 5 times. And the more you write it, the better you get at it. That's one of the tough letters to write because it's a little squiggly thing. Zayin. Okay. And we're going to go through the alphabet every time, so I'm going to take you back to Aleph, and then we're going to say, when I say Zayin, you're going to go Z, like front teeth together, Z, okay? Like the letter Z, Z as in zebra. Are you ready? Here we go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin. Good, you got it. All right, let's go to the next letter. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast or anything like that? Everybody's tracking? You want me to slow down? All right. Let's go to the letter Chet. Now I'm going to have you make a small edits on your pages. You see where it says Ches, K-H-E-S? You see that on your pages? I want you to cross it out, and I want you to write K-H-E-T. K-H-E-T. Chet. Now, if you've ever hawked a loogie, you can say this letter. Or if you've ever been riding on a motorcycle and a mosquito flew in your mouth, what sound would you make? Yeah, right? Trying to get that mosquito off the back of your throat. Right? That's the sound you're going to make with this letter. This is the first of what we call the guttural letters. Guttural, meaning it's in the back of your mouth. So if you're familiar with like the German language or something like that, they have a lot of guttural sounds in their language. So this is going to say Chet, okay? It's a weird sound to make, but just look at your neighbor and apologize right now and say, I'm sorry for spitting on you. Because it's going to happen. Now, when I lead the Hebrew prayers up here, which, you know, it's maybe once a month, once every other month, I will read the prayers up here in front of everybody for our main service. And whenever I get to a letter that's a guttural letter, it never fails that I see like a little thing of spit like come out of my mouth, you know, and land on my siddur that I'm reading from. I'm like, you know, oh, what just happened then? Yeah. And I'm always like, oh man, did anybody see that? You know, I'm always like self-conscious about it. But it's okay. I mean, in Middle Eastern culture, it's a very up-close personal culture. It's one that's loud. It's one that's exciting and very warm culture. So this Chet is going to get you really warmed up for going to Israel with us in June if you want to go, right? All right, Chet. And that's all you do. Now, This looks like a lot like another letter that we already know, the letter He, which is like that. What is the main difference between this letter He and that letter Chet? There's an opening at the top. Remember I said the air can get out freely, but the air hits a blockage there. You see that? It can't get out. So you look at that, when you see that, you should go, it's like choking. Okay? Chet. It's a little blockage there, okay? This, we don't really have an English equivalent to this letter in our alphabet. The best and closest thing we can come up with is like a KH or even like a CH. Chet. But it's really, we don't have an equivalent of this sound. Chet. Okay? It's kind of frustrating. But you're just going to pronounce it as a in the back of your throat, like you're just hawking a loogie, okay? Except just don't hawk a loogie. All right? I just got over a cold, so it's not outside the realm of possibility that I'm hawking a loogie. All right? So let's go through the whole Hebrew alphabet. When I say chet, you're going to say, yeah. Okay. It's kind of a muscle. Once you work it out more, it comes more naturally. Yeah. So just stay like 3 foot body here. All right, you ready? Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet. There you go. I heard some good loogies being hawked there. All right. That corresponds with the number 8. Then we're going to go to the next letter, the letter Tav. The letter Tav. And we got about 30 more minutes, and we're not going to get through the Hebrew alphabet today, which is fine. I'd usually take 2 weeks just to go through the Hebrew alphabet. The letter Tav, the letter Tet. Now, I want you to make an edit on your pages, because on this, you're going to see Tes. I want you to change it to the word Tet, T-E-T, like this. T-E-T. So cross it out and write T-E-T. Tet. This is a tough letter to write, even for me. I struggle with this letter. I almost make a heart, so I'm going to draw a heart like that, and you might erase like the middle portion here like this. And that's about the best you can do with a handwritten tet. To see how it's like flat on the bottom of our sheets, you don't need to achieve that. You can try it. But it's a tough letter to write. I still struggle with this letter. Actually go to a tet writing support group online. So tet, write that 5 times. Tet. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess what sound tet makes. Yeah, it corresponds with our letter T, as in tango. T. T. Okay? So when I say tet, you say t. T. Okay? T. Any questions? That corresponds with the letter 9. All right, you ready to go through the whole thing? Here we go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Good, you got it. Aleph. All right, the next letter is one of my favorite letters, and this is one of the letters here in our word, which is the letter Yud. Yud. This is really easy to write. It's kind of like our apostrophe. Apostrophe. When we want to make a word like possessive or something like that, we usually add a little letter Yud. 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 Sometimes pronounced Yud or Yud. Yud, depending on what region of the world you're speaking Hebrew in. Yud. Okay? This corresponds with the number 10. Yud. What sound do you think it makes?
Yeah.
Yeah, as in our letter Yankee. Y. See, that's another letter. Why do we say the Y like a Y? Why isn't it Y? You know,
Because
it's
it's
confusing.
English.
Hey, Bob. Y, yeah. So it makes that yeah. Like tal mi da. Talmida. Talmid. Okay? Now, the letter Yud, and it actually means hand. Hand. Do you see a little hand there? You see the hand? See that? Let me see. Your hand. So when I say Yud, you're going to go yeah. Hold up your hand. You hold up your Yuds. Yeah, your Yud. Or this is actually, they pronounce it as a Yad. But hold up your Yad when I say Yud. Okay, you ready? You ready to go through the whole thing and say yeah. Hi-ya. All right? Here's a new tradition coming on. Hi-ya. Yeah. All right, here we go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud. Got it, Yud. You go Ya. Ya. All right, next letter. Trucking on. The letter Kaf. The letter Kaf. It's really simple. If you can write a lowercase or uppercase C, just write a C backwards. That's it. Write a C backwards. Kaf. Kaf. Let's start with the Kaf with the dot in the middle. Okay? Kaf. Kaf. Now, if you have a Kaf with a dot in the middle, it's going to make just a straight, somebody tell me what sound you think Kaf is going to make. Ka, like a K. K. So I like to turn around if I'm sitting at the dining room table and everyone's eating there. If I have to cough, I'm normally going to go like this. I'm going to turn around like a C. I'm going to backwards C. I'm going to cough. Okay? So it goes K, like cough. All right? But there's another sound that a cough can make. Very similar sound. And that's if it's lacking the dot in the middle. If it's lacking the dot in the middle, it's going to make a guttural Cha, Chaf. Okay? Like our Chet. It's the same exact sound as the letter Chet. Chaf, Chet. Okay? So write that 5 times without the dot and write a KH next to it. Chaf, Chaf, Chaf. Right? When we are saying the Hebrew alphabet, we'll just say the K sound, not the guttural sound, okay? Because that'll be enough spit. This saying the Chet will be enough spit. So we're just going to say the K sound, K. All right? So when I say cough, you say K. K. Let's try it again. Cough. Cough. Aleph. Beit. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. Vav. Zayin. Chet. Tet. Yud. Kaf. Okay, everybody get their hands up. Yud. Haya. All right. Let's go to the next letter. Now I want you to skip what's called the final cough. Skip that. Don't worry about that. I'll stress you out. We're going to go to the next letter, which is also in our word Talmud. This letter is a really cool letter because it stands above all the other letters. And it's a special letter. Let me get some room here. The letter Lamed, it means, in the Hebrew language, Lamed is a verb. A verb is an action word, and it means to teach, but also to learn. So who's standing, besides these two kids, who's the only person in this room standing up right now? You. Me. What am I doing? Teaching. I am lameding you the Hebrew language. I'm teaching you, and you're learning it. So the lamed goes like this. It stands above all the letters. You see how this one reaches up higher? It's like a position of leadership, right? Lamed. Like this. It's like kind of like a shepherd's. In ancient form, it would have been in like its ancient primitive form, a pictographic form, a shepherd's staff. And the sheep follow the shepherd, and sometimes the shepherd has that big staff. And what does he do? He fends off the sheep from attacks, from like wolves or predators, but also sometimes he uses it to kind of keep his sheep in place, right? And he's like, hey, don't do that, and he like taps them, right? Or sometimes he has to like hook it around its neck and drag it back. And that's kind of the essence of a teacher or a shepherd of a flock, like a local assembly, like a church, like a pastor. What he does is he teaches, he guides, he leads the sheep to a place where there is grass and says, eat here. He can't force them. He can't pick the grass and shove it down their mouths and chew it. But he says, there's grass here. I want to give you this information that should hopefully, meet your dietary needs as believers. And then if someone comes into the body and they're teaching something that is an errant, that's a false gospel, false truth, then what is his job? He takes the staff and he has a different job. Get back, get back. This is my flock. I have to protect them. I've been put in charge of this flock. And I have to be a good steward of them. So that's what the teacher does, Lamed. Okay? What do you think this corresponds with, our English letter? El. Well, why does it start with the E sound? But it's El, La. Okay, so we've got Lamed, Yud, Dalet so far that we've learned in our lesson today. Lamed, Yud. So we're almost done making the Talmud. So when I say Lamed, let's get our shepherd staff and you go La. La. I'm a shepherd, right? La. You gotta like grunt it now. La. I'm a shepherd. All right? Here we go. Aleph. Uh-oh, some of you are sleeping already. It's my coffee. Aleph. Beit. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. Vav. Zayin. Chet. Tet. Yud. Yud. I like seeing that. Cough. Do you want to cover our mouths when we cough? Okay, let's go. Yud. Yud. Cough. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Lamed. La. Shepherd staff, right? Lamed. La. All right, let's do it again. A little bit faster. Aleph. Beit. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. Vav. Zayin. Chet. Tet. Yud. Cough. Lamed. I had to think for a second. What a Yeah. That's actually kind of hard to do because I have to drown you guys out in my mind and just focus on saying the alphabet. All right, next letter that we're going to learn is the Mem. Now the Mem is exciting because it's another one of our letters from our key word in this lesson, the Talmud. The letter Mem, it corresponds with the letter 40. Whoa, it's like, whoa, where's the jump from all of a sudden? Because the Hebrew numbers only go up to 10, and then they start working in units of 10, stacking on top of each other. So Mem is the fourth of the tens. Mem means 40. Mem is 40. So go ahead and try to write a Mem. Here's how I write the Mem. I start over here. I'm probably writing it totally wrong. But I start right here, and I make like that shape right there. But you leave a little space. It's very important you leave a space. There is a closed Mem in the Hebrew Bible that you can research. Then you give it a little sail right there. And give it a little chimney. So make a little house like that with a little space, and give it a little chimney. Mem. All right, I'll do it again. This is dropping. But if you have the time, you want to go on an awesome goose chase, look up the mystery of the closed Mem. The closed Mem. It's written like this for some reason. And I'll give you a hint. I think it's in Isaiah talking about perhaps a virgin birth of someone. The virgin shall conceive. But look that up and research that in your own time. The closed Mem. All right, so that's Mem. It corresponds with the number 40. What do you think Mem is going to correspond with in our alphabet?
M.
The letter M. M. Okay? M. Mem. M. All right, let's go through. When I say Mem, you say M. You say M. All right, we have about 20 minutes and we're going to wrap up. When I say Mem, you say M. Okay? Let's go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, M. Okay, let's do it again. Aleph. Ooh, somebody's trying to repeat. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem. Yeah, All right. We're going to skip the final Mem. Just don't worry about that right now. Let's go to the letter Nun. Nun. The letter Nun. What you do is you write a Vav. Write a Vav like this. Write a Vav, and then you give it a base. Straight across. 90-degree angle. Straight across at a 90-degree angle. Make a Vav, 90-degree angle straight across. Nun. 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 Thank you. What sound do you think a noon is going to make? Yeah, like our letter N. In. N. Okay? Somebody tell me a biblical character whose name starts with a noon. Noah. Noah. And in fact, his name looks like this. Noah. All right, there's no vowels. So the Noah, those are both vowels. So he just has 2 letters in his name. Noach. Noach. All right, and you know this letter already. Who can tell me what letter that is? Chen. See, it's blocked up, so it goes Noach. Noach. You already know how to spell Noah's name. The interesting thing about Noah, it says in Genesis that Noah found chen in the sight of God. Grace. He found grace in the sight of God. In other words, God singled him out because he was a righteous man. He was an obedient man. He said, I want you to build me a boat. I want you to save all of humanity. He found chen. When we take the word chen and we write it in Hebrew, it's the same exact word, but what do you notice? It's backwards. It's backwards. Chen. So Noah found chen. Isn't that interesting? Now this would actually be, I purposely misspelled it, but this would actually be a final noon. But I just wanted, for illustration purposes, I want to show you. All right, so that's the noon. So when I say noon, you say nun. Nun. Noon means fish as well. Noon. All right, here we go. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun. Good, you got it. The next letter is a Samech. Samech. And the way I write a Samech is kind of a cheat way. I just more or less, I write it like this right here, like an O. Board's still wet. O, and I give it a little tail at the top. Like an O, and then I come back over and give it a little tail. Samech. Samech. Speaking of Noah, there's a Noah. We were just talking about your name. Okay, Josie. All right, Samech. What sound do you think Samech is going to make? S. Like a snake. Snake. S. All right. Let's go through. When I say Samech, you're going to say hiss like a snake. All right. Ready? Aleph. Bet. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. Vav. Zayin. Chet. Tet. Yud. Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech. Good. Samech corresponds with the number 60. I think we're going to get through the entire alphabet, which may be the first. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Maybe the first time I've gotten through the Hebrew alphabet in the first lesson. So guys are good. Smart group. Smart group we got here.
Smart teacher.
Oh, no. Yeah, don't know. Wow, Adrian, wow. What if I needed that today? I mean,
He just blew that. I'd be a millennial.
yeah. I'm ashamed to say.
He is a millennial.
I am. I'm right on the cusp of being a millennial.
Should we get validated?
Yeah, I need validation. I need green ribbons and all that. All right. So the next letter we're going to learn is the letter Ein. Ein. And I basically make a lowercase y. That's the easiest way to think about it, the lowercase y. Ein. However, make lowercase y. The biggest difference is I would write a y straight down like that. The Ein, you're going to make it and kind of curve it over like that. Ein. Ein. Yo, what's up, man? Ein. Now, the word ein means I. It kind of sounds like I, doesn't it? Ein. I. Okay? It means ein. Or it means I. Okay? But it can also mean a body of water that's boiling out of the ground, very cold, clear water. What do you call that? Spring. It's an ein as well. So why is the Hebrew word for I the same as for a spring that boils out of the ground? Doesn't our master say that the eye is the lamp of the body? The eye is evil and the whole body is evil, right? Something along those lines. And so maybe there's a connection there. There's water. That water comes from both. So ein, and ein is going to predominantly it's going to make an ah sound. we're all going to point to our eye and say, ah. Like you're looking at something and you go, ah. You know, okay, ein. Let's practice. Ein. Ah. Ein. Ein. Beit. Okay, just forget. Aleph. Beit. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. Vav. Zayin. Chet. Tet. Yud. Kaf. Lamed. Mim. Nun. Samech. Good. Samech. Ein. Ah. Good. All right. And then the next letter, skip, well, no, we're going to go to Sadi. Sadi. Sadi is very similar to an Ein, except,
Hey.
huh?
Hey.
Did I skip Pei?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry, I skipped Ein Pei. Let's go with Pei, my bad. So write Pei. This is how I write Pei. It's a backwards, upside down G. Backwards, upside down G. Uppercase G. You see that? And here's a G in our language. Very blocky G. So backwards, upside down G. Just like that. Pei. Pei. All right? Write that 5 times. Backwards, upside down G. We're going to be done in like 10 minutes. It's a plan. Pei. Huh?
Dot.
Yeah, we'll talk about, oh, should I put one here now? Put a dot in your pays. Sorry. Put a dot there. Pei. What do you think a pei is going to sound like? P. P. Now, this is a hard P. P. You hear the pressure? P. Do you hear that pressurized P sound? That's because our cork is back. Ah, the cork that has the pressure, right? P. P. So when I say pei, you say P. Okay? Now, if I take the pei and I remove the cork, it's going to make a softer fe. Fe. So we got a pei, then we got a fe. Pei, fe. Pei means mouth. Mouth. Pei. Fe means the same thing. It's just a different pronunciation of it. Fe. Pei, fe. All right? So write that without the dot 5 times. All right. Now when I say pei, you go pa. All right, let's practice. Pei. 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 Good. All right, here we go. All the way back to the beginning. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech, Ein. Good. Ein. Pei. P. Good. All right, pei, and then we go sadi. Sadi. I write a sadi like this. How do I write it? I just messed myself up. What do I do? Oh, like this. Sorry. I make a hard like angle like that, and then I give it a little. See how I'm doing that? Make like a sideways V and give it a little spike up the top there. Sadi. Huh?
Greater than.
Sadi. Yeah, like a greater than sign. Sadi. Sadi. Now, this word sadi means righteous. What does a righteous man spend his time doing? He's on his knees and he's praying. Now, do you see the similarity in that my posture in that letter? Sadi. Sadi. Sadi means righteous. So a Sadiq is a righteous man. He's praying. He spends time in prayer, on his knees praying. Sadiq. Okay, so when I say, oh, and this corresponds with our English. Sadi is like a mixture of a T and a Z together. So go tsa, tsa. Now say the word pizza. You just all made the sound. Pizza, pizza. Okay, Sadi, Sadi. It's the same exact sound. And in fact, that word pizza may have been influenced by the Hebrew language because at that time there was a lot of Jews living in the land of Italy and Spain. All right, then let's keep going. Actually, let's go. When I say Sadi, you go tss, tss. Okay, Sadi. Oh, I don't know why I'm doing that thing. Sadi. Okay, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei, Sadi. You guys are messing me up. All right, let's go through it all again, and then we're going to do, we've got two more letters, and we're done. 3 more letters, and we're done. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei, Sadi. Good, you got it. The next letter is the letter Kuf. 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 So you see that on your charts. Corresponds with the number 100. Remember, we're just stacking 10s on top of each other at this point. With the letter 100. Kuf. I think we might. Let's see. So what I do is I almost write a P. Except I come above the vertical place there, and I come down like that. So I make it a little, so give yourself a vertical line, then make almost like a P, but they're not connected at all. It's kind of like floating out there. Almost like a P. See that? Write that 5 times. Kuf, kuf. This kind of sounds like our letter Q. Kuf, kuf. Okay? Kuf, kuf. 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 All right, so when I say kuf, you say cook. 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 Okay? Kuf. Kuf. All right, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei, Sadi, Kuf, Reish. Oh, no, I went too far. Kuf. All right, the next letter is the letter Reish. Now, it's really easy. Just draw backwards lowercase r. Backwards lowercase r. Do that. You gotta make the sound. Reish. Reish. Now, the Reish, it looks like a backwards R, and it kind of sounds like a backwards R. Like an R. Reish. But depending on what community of Hebrew speakers you're around, it might sound a little bit different. You might have a Reish, like our English R, or you might have a Reish in the back of your throat, Reish. Or if you're around some Sephardic Jews that have more of a Ladino, like more of a Spanish influence, you would hear Reish, like Torah, like that, okay? Or you might have a Torah, or you might have a Torah. It just depends on what Hebrew-speaking community you grew up in. We say Reish. In Israel, it almost sounds like an L, Reish. It's very similar to like an L. It's a weird sound. Sound that we don't really have the equivalent of in English. It's Reish in the back of your throat. But it's okay if for now you just want to say Reish. Okay? Everybody knows what you're saying. Reish. Reish has the same root as head. Rosh. Have you heard of Rosh Hashanah? The head of the year? Rosh Hashanah. Rosh is head. Hashanah is the year. So when I say Reish, you say ra, like our R. Okay, point to your head, say ra. Okay? Let's go through the whole thing. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei, Sadi, Kuf, Reish, Ra. Good. Last letter. No, second to last letter. Sheen. Now I make a U. Like this, and then I give it like a little tooth right there in the middle. Sheen. You see that? Make a U, give it a little tooth coming out in the middle there. Sheen. This is the letter used for Shaddai. You ever heard El Shaddai? This is Sheen. And then I want you to go through and put a dot over the right-hand side over here. Sheen. What do you think sheen corresponds with in our sounds? S-H. Sheen. Sheen. Okay? A sheen means teeth. You see the teeth there? It's like shark's teeth. Sheen. Okay? Let's all grit our teeth when we say sheen. Okay? Grit your teeth. Hope you flossed this morning. Sheen. Sheen. Alright? Grit your teeth. Show your teeth. Sheen. If you ever see a sheen with the dot on the left, it's going to make a seen. 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 Like Satan. Seen. But if it's on the right, it's going to be sheen. So we got seen, sheen. Seen, sheen. Okay? So what I would do if I were you, I would write your notes like this. And I would go S-H. Now make another one like this. And then go S. Sheen, seen. All right, but we're just going to say sheen. Grit your teeth. Sheen. Like that, okay? Are you ready? Sheen. Yeah, grit your teeth. Good job, Alexis. You're good at gritting your teeth for some reason. It seems like you're natural at it. She grit her teeth. Okay. Sheen. Sheen. Good. Aleph. Beit. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. Vav. Zion. Chet. Ooh, I just hit way over there. Tet, Yud, Kaf, warned you, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Hey, Sadi, Kuf, Resh, Sheen. Last letter, you ready? Any questions so far? Any questions? No?
So here, let's see. I've written 2 letters written down. It's K.
Yeah, same exact sound. Kaf and Kuf.
Okay.
Same exact sound.
Same exact sound.
Yep.
Okay.
Unless it's a guttural kaf, but same exact sound. Yeah, next time just raise your hand, okay? I'm sorry. Oh man, I love this one. The last letter for the day is this letter right here. You're going to make a chet, but instead of coming straight down, you're going to give it a little tail. Like this. And see the little roof hanging over like that? Takes a few times to master it. You go like that. Hey Marvin. How you doing? Good morning. Marvin is our other Hebrew wizard here. All right, this letter is Tav. Tav. Now, you'll notice on your charts it says Sav. Go with the Tav one. We're going to always say Tav. This corresponds, what do you think this corresponds with? T. But you're like, wait, we already have a letter T. I know. But we have two T sounds in the Hebrew alphabet for some reason. So Tav. We have a Tet and we have a Tav. They both say the same thing. Okay, as a tango. All right? So let's go through the whole thing. When I say Tav, you say T. Tav, T. Now check this out. We can spell a whole word now. All right? Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Sameh, Ayin, Hey, Sadi, Kuf, Resh, Sheen, Tav. Good. Now we can spell this entire word. We have a T sound, we have an L sound, we have a M sound, we have a Y sound, and we have a D sound. So if we put all these together, we have Talmid. Talmid. A Talmid is a perpetual student of someone else. Okay? We say disciple. But the Talmid's job really has 4 main jobs. Okay? To be fully devoted to his teacher, to memorize the words of his teacher, to replicate his teacher, and to imitate his teacher. Did I already say imitate? Okay, imitate his teacher in every respect. Like in the book of Luke, Yeshua says, when a student, he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. That is the job of the Talmid, is to imitate in every respect known possible of the teacher, of the rabbi. So a Talmid, a disciple, in short, is an imitator. 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Messiah. Right? It's all about imitation. And it's all about replication, making other talmidim for our masters. Matthew 28, go therefore into all the nations, making disciples and baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Making talmidim out of people. Making other imitators. Right? So that's the job of a talmid. And that's one of the things that we really emphasize here at our congregation is imitating our master. And in closing, I like to say we have the easiest known faith in the world. And it's in terms of formula, our faith is the easiest in the world. Our formula is this. Imitate Yeshua of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth. Imitate him. That's it. If anyone adds to that or takes away from that, they're not teaching you the full gospel. Imitate our master. Okay? In terms of execution, we have the hardest faith in the world. Formula, easiest faith. Execution, hardest faith. Why? I always say this. Because he says, pick up your cross and follow me. Why are we walking around with crosses on our back? Theoretical, figurative crosses on our back? Just for looks? Just so people can see, oh, you're one of the followers of Christ. Because we're dying to ourselves, and we should be prepared to die for his name. Because someone might try to nail us to that cross. It's like, oh, you want to nail me to a cross? Oh, I got one right here on my back, actually. I find it to be an honor to die for the sake of my master. It's an honor, it's a privilege to die for him. Right? So that's why we carry crosses on our back. In terms of formula, easiest faith. Just to imitate, be a talmid. In terms of execution, hardest faith. Because we got to give our lives for it. And we die to ourselves every day. Amen? All right, good deal. Any questions before we close? I'm going to close in prayer, and then we're going to set up for our Shabbat service here. Anything? Questions? Cut it off? Oh, you can leave. I'll cut it off when I'm done praying. Thank you. I'll let you cut it off when I'm done praying. All right, cool. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you continue to come throughout the course of this class and really delve into the Hebrew text. At the end of this class, we will get out a Torah scroll, handwritten Torah scroll. We will unroll it, and we will all take turns reading from it, just as a class. It's a really cool experience, really enriching experience. But hang on to your Hebrew chart. Your homework is to memorize these 22 letters. And here's how you memorize it. Say this 3 times a day. 3 times a day, every day, and you'll master it. Okay? Next week at 9 a.m. You ready? All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that you brought all these people here today to learn your Lashon Kodesh, your holy language. Thankful for another day we have to serve you, to call you King. You are a righteous King. You are a just King, and your kingship is for all eternity. Your ways are so perfect, Father. You are gracious and merciful, and we just honor you and sanctify your holy name. Help us to be better talmidim, better talmid for our master, for our rabbi, the one that died and bore our sins when we were still undeserving of it. We thank you so much for the gift that you gave us through his death and the ability to approach your throne with petitions and praises. I just pray for these students as they go out into the world, wherever life takes them, that they would take this language and they would learn it, they would digest it and use it to study your word and to give you glory more than anything else. Use it as a form of worship more than anything else. And it's in our Master, Yeshua's mighty, beautiful, and precious name. We all say, Amen. Amen. A Hebrew word that you already know. All right, thank you guys. Thank you. Keep it real.